नमस्कार दोस्तों, this is the second interview of CLAT 2022. The student sitting in front of me is one of the most brilliant student I have ever taught. She scored 95.5% in her board exam. She topped the Ferguson College.
Yes.
And added to that, she scored 32 rank in CLAT 2022. She got 25 marks in GK section, the section which was very tough this time. And I remember teaching her in class. There were many days, there were many instances when some fact of GK or some concept of GK were not in my reach. And then I asked Anushka, Anushka, तेरे को ये पता है क्या? And she says, हाँ सर, ये तो ऐसे ऐसे होता है. And then I said, हाँ अभी सही है. So welcome Anushka, welcome. Congratulations first of all, beta. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
You are such an awesome student, and they always say that a successful person is not successful only by their motivation or skills. They are successful because of their discipline, and you are a very apt example of that. A highly disciplined student, a highly regular student, a student who was always there whenever the test was there, a student who was always there to give the mock and to do whatever it takes to be in the college she wants to be. How did any 3 points that how did Mega GK as an institution and me as a mentor or this community help you to crack your CLAT exam?
Yeah, okay. So I feel like that question has...
Then this question, let me just put up with one more point, help you to live this journey.
Right, okay. So I feel like that question has several parts. Mega GK as an institution, I would say, is the foundation on which I based the method in which I will approach a subject like GK. मैंने जब भी ये अगस्त में join किया था, my main problem was that I have resources to do GK. Like thankfully I had enrolled in a coaching and I had that privilege to access those resources, but I had no idea how to do it. Like, do I memorize these numbers? Is this really important? That is where I was at in August 2021. And going to sir's class and going through the notes, the way he would highlight certain parts, the way while discussing the notes in class, he would stress upon certain things. It helped me to see the pattern in GK, because GK is such a vast subject कि अगर तुम CLAT के कितने भी mocks दे दो and you don't know how to study it, at least for me personally, it was hard to find a pattern. How are they picking which subjects are important? ये मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा था खुद से. And that is where Manav sir came in and his notes helped me to understand, oh, what exactly is an important news item with the perspective of CLAT. तो जो भी मैंने उसके बाद किया, whether from these sources, other sources, it was based on the foundation that I built in Mega GK of what constitutes an important piece of news for CLAT or AILET. Right. Then Manav sir as a mentor helped me. Like, the biggest thing he helped me in is something I've already mentioned. He told me that past precedent एक limit तक ही useful होता है. Otherwise it's you at that time and वो mock, वो section, वो question. And additionally, I feel like he's a very intuitive mentor. Whenever I would call him, I'm not the kind of person who will traditionally feel comfortable in calling other people. So even until the last moment, whenever I would call him, he would somehow know that I had already gone through a major chunk of whatever was troubling me on my own, because I thought ये तो मुझे आना चाहिए, मैं किसको पूछूं, मुझे आना चाहिए. So that is what. So whenever I would call him, he would end the call by saying at least twice or thrice, even though I could hear him perfectly, that I'm just a call away. जब भी कुछ हो, मुझे text करो, मुझे call करो, I'm just a call away. So he was giving me that reassurance. Like, I don't think I ever expressed it to him, because that's not the kind of thing you say to somebody. But he intuitively understood कि मुझे नहीं आता है reach out करना जितना naturally किसी और को आता होगा. And he would say that at the end of every call. And I'm not sure how much I reached out to him and whether I should have done more, but whenever I needed it, I never felt any hesitation in going to talk to him. So I feel like that is the biggest way he helped me as a mentor, is that he intuitively understood what kind of person I was. Like, even like that's one layer deeper than what kind of aspirant I was, right? So that is what helped me a lot.
Community as well as the community for preparation as well.
Yeah. So we would turn on our cameras and we would give the mock. A lot of us would try to give the same mock, but अगर किसी का वो हो गया होगा, तो they would give a different mock. And then sir would come sometimes, and he would give us insights about, okay, तो तेरा body posture ऐसे था, or you were like continuously doing this. A lot of people do this back and forth while they're giving a mock. So this is actually taking your attention away from the question, because subconsciously your brain is still processing that you are moving back and forth, right? So he would point out these little things for us, which I think is a really commendable thing, considering that सब लोग Zoom पे थे. He couldn't even see, like body language analysis तो तब होता है जब तुम पूरा देखो, like he could see the square for like the not even the entire top half of our entire body, and he would still analyze the things that were bothering us, and like to a sort of to a great degree of accuracy. So I feel like that helped me a lot. In general, the Mega GK community, it didn't have that formal feel that you sort of get in coaching classes or even in school कि okay sir पढ़ा रहे so he is above you, ऐसे feeling ही नहीं है. Because when you're learning something, it's just one person sharing with another person, right? And it's sort of a back and forth. It should be a back and forth. और उसमें कोई ऊपर नीचे नहीं होता, equality होता है. So that is the thing that helped me the most, because it really helped me to free up to participate in class, which is what I appreciated the most about the community.
This is the basically the last point you mentioned was from the very beginning of my education when I was in school, was something that I wanted to be in the education system, but I never had in this 12 years of teaching student, I never had this whole concept in words, and thanks to you put the complete situation in word right now. So otherwise I just have a feeling कि ऐसा होना चाहिए. I never had a word. Now we can also add this in poster that we have the most democratic class among all the institutions. Most democratic class. So we always believe, I personally always believe in one thing, that if given a chance to choose between respect and love, I always go for love, not for respect. Because respect is something that needs to be fortified. And when you need to fortify for yourself, when you need to fortify the thing, you sometimes have to fortify it with different things. But love is something that gives you chance that sometimes you can go wrong, sometimes the student can also go wrong. So I remember मतलब till now while teaching the class, अगर मुझको कुछ नहीं आता है तो मुझे नहीं आता है. It is easy to say that कि भाई ये मुझे नहीं आता है और मैं कल बता दूंगा, rather than घूम लो घुमाने से. So this is a very important point, Anushka. Thank you very much. What made you to choose law as a career?
Okay, so my journey with law started in a very emotional manner, I would say. When I was in 8th standard, I'm a voracious reader. I love reading, and I read the book To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Okay, and at the time I was so impressed. It was like one of my favorite books that I had ever read at the time, and I was ये करना है मुझे life में ये करना है. So it was a sort of emotional decision, right? Based on that book, I took a decision. But like even as I went forward through 8th, 9th, 10th, and so on, I kept finding better arguments that made me stick with that decision. Like for example, I'm a good public speaker. I come from a family where I'm privileged enough to be able to speak English fluently in this interview also. I have a good background in languages. I'm good at articulating my thoughts. Additionally, I'm a big fan of the logical argument. Like I love logical progression patterns are things that I've been interested in since I was a child. So I kept finding different parts of my personality and my interests that and ultimately I built a strong argument for the fact that I should pursue law, and this is where I would be able to use my talents to help other people.
One of the very highly informed and one of the very rationally right answer that I got, because I expected this answer from you, because each and every time we had a word, and every student of our batch always says that if Anushka is saying it must be a rational thought. It must be a rational thought. So that is very good. Second question, very important, and in your case it is very, very important, that See, some students have some habits from their childhood that always help them or give them a edge in competitive exams. So to out the all the teenagers out there in their 13, 14, 15, what habits do they inculcate in themselves which can help them to crack any examination in a better manner?
Okay, so first of all, I would say the best way to crack a competitive exam is to have the experience in your belt of giving a competitive exam before. So when I was in fourth standard, the Maharashtra state would hold a Maharashtra state scholarship exam. At the time, it was for fourth and seventh standard, and now it's been shifted to fifth and eighth, I think. So when I was in fourth standard, I gave that exam. I had the background of my mother and her brother both being toppers in that exam. And at the point, I just wanted to be like my mom. So I decided to give it. And she's been a really instrumental person in the things that we talk about now for CLAT aspirants, that how to eliminate questions, how to look at a math question and see that, oh, this question has the numbers 8 and 3 in it. So 8 or 3 ka multiple kuch to hoga, 24 or a multiple of 24. So these answers are clearly not the right answers. So these sort of skills I developed at a really early age because of my mom. She single-handedly coached me for my fourth standard scholarship, which I eventually got. And there's nothing like the real thing. So basically, I already had the experience in my belt, even though CLAT was obviously significantly different. Other than that, I would say there are two important habits, one of which is reading. CLAT is a very reading heavy paper. There's a lot of people in doubt sessions or even like the classmates that I was studying with who say that ध्यान ही नहीं रहता है पेपर में, कभी कभी नींद आ जाती है, कभी कभी you just zone out. So the important thing is reading. Fortunately, मेरे लिए I used to love reading like anything. And my father encouraged this habit where he was in a job where he'd travel a lot, and every week when he'd come back, he would get me some book or something. So that's a great thing. I mean, which really encouraged my reading habits. But I would place importance on reading, one, as a hobby, like read something you like, and two, as something you would enjoy. Like I would, even now, I follow the formula of, one, I read something I like enjoy, which is usually a fiction book or historical fiction, whatever it is. And the second, I will read a book which challenges me. Like currently, I am reading a book called Desperately Seeking Shahrukh, which explores how Shahrukh Khan, as a hero that was typically for a female audience, and through that it explores what expectations Indian women hold from him and the socio-economic status of Indian women in India, which I thought was a very unique way to look at anything. So always read one book that you like and one other book that challenges you. That's the formula I followed my entire life. The second habit that I wanted to talk about is seeing patterns. So now that sounds like a very vague thing, right? What is a pattern? Kidhar bhi dikh jata hai, kuch bhi. But it does, like once you start applying it. For example, my brother, I have a younger brother who's in 9th class right now. He's really gifted in maths and science. He does struggle in the languages a bit. But there are patterns to languages. Like, for example, anybody who's studying vocabulary knows that etymology hota hai. There are two words that have the same root. So if you recognize the root, you can guess the meaning of the word. That's a pattern. Mathematics, the way I described earlier, elimination of questions, you can identify patterns and eliminate entire answer choices, thus significantly increasing your chance of getting it right.
For sure.
For AILET specifically, there are questions which will be series, like they'll give you a series of numbers and ask you to, that directly requires you to find a pattern.
Find the pattern.
Right. So solving puzzles, any kind of puzzles, spatial puzzles, verbal puzzles, it doesn't matter. As a hobby, solving puzzles is really has played a huge role in my life in terms of seeing patterns. I did not play chess or any of those brain games, but I was interested in the languages, so I would solve crossword puzzles and word searches and all sorts of riddles or anything I could get my hands on. And I feel like that really helped with my CLAT preparation because I immediately knew which patterns to look for or how to look for them.
This is one of the important answer that I am going to cut down this basic part of video and mark the video named as important tips for the parents of the CLAT aspirants. Not basically for only for the aspirants, but for the parents of the CLAT aspirant. Because right now what is happening, what I am seeing across the generation and many of the students that each and every person, sorry, not each and every, majority of them are basically not focusing on retrieving the things and solving something. They are just focusing on accepting and having the things, feed the things. So feeding the things will not always help, as we used to say in the class, that if you cannot retrieve the GK from your brain, if you cannot solve the puzzle from your brain, because the examiner is not going to ask you the same question that you have read in the same manner. He or she is going to ask you the same question in a different manner, like the Vikramaditya and Virat question, the ship question.
Yeah.
In that question, it is very much clear that evident that all the three ships are aircraft carrier, and the aircraft carrier will not carry goods and materials to the different country.
Exactly.
So they will send a small ship. So this is a pattern. This is a pattern. So if this is the answer, so a very very apt answer, very apt answer. My third question is again a question that hundreds of students have asked me, hundreds of students, that how did you manage your boards and CLAT together? That is also with 95.5%. You topped your boards, you topped your college, and 32 rank in CLAT.
Right. So I guess I should preface this with a disclaimer. I took humanities, which made the multitasking monumentally easier. If you, at least for commerce, I could speak with some kind of experience because a very close friend of mine is taken commerce. But for science, I have no first-hand idea of the demands that the subjects will make from you. So I don't know if my advice would be relevant there. But when it comes to humanities, right, it's quite easy to balance boards and CLAT, because CLAT में जो passages आते हैं, a lot of them are from humanities side subjects. So I had taken political science and economics were two subjects that helped with my preparation the most. Additionally, I had taken a subject called logic, which was available to me as a choice. I don't think it's available in most places in Maharashtra also. But courtesy of like me studying in Ferguson College, I had that choice. Logic helped me with my fundamentals. It had syllogisms and such, which helped me a lot in AILET. But it does help you in CLAT as well, because it's the foundations of what makes an argument. That was taught to us. So I was very lucky in that sense that 3 of my 6 subjects were, and in fact even English. So 4 of my 6 subjects were directly helping me in my CLAT preparation, which is why I took the decision that I would not balance or multitask throughout the year. I would keep boards later. I would just the required amount of class that I was mandated to attend, I would go to those classes. I would pay attention. In economics, I was blessed with this amazing economics teacher who would answer all of my questions, sometimes even going beyond the syllabus if it required. So I would ask questions about things I didn't understand in CLAT in the passages. I would expand my comprehension, expand my horizons in class. And otherwise, when I studied for myself, I would focus only on CLAT. So the proper board exam study, which I did only in the last month of my preparation, during which I intermittently came to class, as sir knows. That was the month where I was there sometimes. And other times.
My boards are coming. My class can be I can skip class some of the days, but I'll manage it later. For sure, I know.
So those were the days where my CLAT prep took a backseat. Then I focused entirely on boards. And it did not take me much time, because my foundations of any subject, the concepts that you need, they were rock solid because of the questions I'd asked in class. And ultimately, I'd solved hundreds of economics and political science passages in CLAT. Okay. So the necessary vocabulary was already there. What remained was answer writing. I spoke about patterns earlier. Exams are also patterns, right? There are हर एग्जाम का अलग पैटर्न होता है. You superficially also there's a different syllabus and a different paper pattern, and ultimately there's a different way of thinking that will help you crack every exam. So for boards, the pattern lies in the answer writing. How do you put your answers? Fortunately, CLAT will help you for that, because CLAT में जो passages होते हैं, all of them are logical arguments. They will begin with their topic sentence, which is a conclusion. They will support it with data. Boards में भी जो answers लिखते हो, तुमको वैसे ही लिखना है. So all you have to do is recognize, okay, so what are they asking about? Okay, the history of the Cold War. What are the main points that I know? Okay, these are the points. What is the evidence for those points? Okay, the rise of maybe the United States. Okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. That's how you structure an answer in your head. So in the last 1 month, I really practiced going over my material again and again, not really focusing on how much I remember and how much I don't, because that tends to derail my prep. I would get obsessed over not remembering this one fact. But I would go over my syllabus and again, and I would structure it in the form of a logical argument in my head, as if it were a CLAT passage. And then when I would go to the paper, there were questions that I did not expect. There were questions that were drawing from multiple lessons or whatever. But ultimately, all I had to do is structure it as an argument, collect all of the data in my head and rearrange it and then write it down, which is what I think really helped me a lot. Another thing I would say about boards is for people who are choosing humanities, I can't speak about other streams. Subject choices बहुत सारे होते हैं, right? So before, if you're in a position where you are yet to choose your subjects or you have exercised some choice, because some colleges don't give you a choice.
For sure.
You should download the PDFs of the textbooks before you choose those subjects. Like when I started doing it, and if you have that kind of clarity that you want to do CLAT or any other entrance exam really, then you know that your boards are going to be secondary. So the first thing I did after I had secured my admission was that I went on the website of the Maharashtra School Board and I downloaded the textbooks of 11th and 12th of all of the subjects I was considering. And I looked through them. I was like, okay, I have to study these for 2 years and this is going to be my secondary priority. Can I still get a high score? Because that was still a priority for me. Right? I did not know at the time that CLAT was going to go well. So obviously boards is a priority. So a lot of people just tend to get overwhelmed by that fact, but there are things you can control. Like one of the subjects that I was considering, history is a subject dear to my heart. But the textbook was voluminous and it had all of these facts that I had already read, but just in more detail. So I knew it was going to take more of my time from CLAT, and I did not want it to do that. So I could not take it for 11th and 12th. So this is a really key thing to do. There are certain things you can control, and you shouldn't miss the opportunity to at least have those things on your side, because everything else is just a big unknown.
So this answer, I have been teaching last from 10 to 12 years, and this answer is basically far better from those students who choose their optional for UPSC. I am telling you this, who choose their optional for UPSC, and my best opinion to each and every one of you out there, this is what we always say in UPSC, that before choosing your option, first please download a syllabus. First, please see that what were the question asked in the last 4 or 5 years, and first please match how much that optional can help you with your general studies and how much that optional you can tolerate, how much that option. So from my point of view, my optional was political science. I qualified NET also in political science. I have seen history, but I never chose history because I know that I cannot read history for the coming year or two. So this is very important. One of the very informed answer, Anushka. I basically believe that most of the student out there will get benefit out of this answer. My third very important question, that what was, although we have known, we have a certain amount of idea about this question since the interview, but what was your journey, the time you started preparing for CLAT specifically per se, and to the your juncture of rank 32?
Okay, so I first started considering CLAT at the time जब CLAT 2020 हुआ भी नहीं था. Okay. And I gave my first mock, and I think I got 72 in the mock.
Okay.
And in the first year of my preparation, I think I joke with my friends that it was the best year of my preparation, because I would attend classes really half-heartedly, and I did not pay any attention to GK because ये मेरे लिए relevant ही नहीं है, तो मैं क्यों करूँ? And I would give mocks, and that was specifically because my father said that if you're not paying that much attention in classes and you're not solving any material on your own, at least give a mock a week. I would give one mock per week, and I would go and I would just have fun. I would look at the passage. Oh, इसमें क्या बताया? Oh, they're telling us about the Renaissance. Oh, I did not know this. I would read the passage. Get interested in the topics in the passage, because CLAT passages will literally show you the world. एक mock में you will go from the left side of the spectrum to the right side, किधर भी जा सकते हो तो. So I would read the passages, have fun. I would mark whatever answers that I felt were appropriate. GK, I would just have 10 minutes of guesswork. ये तो होगा, ये नहीं होगा, ये होगा, नहीं होगा. And I personally did not like maths. So sometimes I would still have as many as 20 minutes left and I would just not give maths and submit the work. I had fun with it. And I would still get, like, I started getting 90s and then hundreds during this period. Now, my theory is that because CLAT 2020, at the time 2020 was over and 2021 was yet to happen. And my theory is that after CLAT 2020, the mocks are modeled on the previous paper, right? And they only had the precedent of that one paper, so they were quite easy. And then 2021 happened, and as we know, a lot of people got a shock because they were performing well in mocks, and then the actual CLAT turned out to be a bit different.
For sure.
Right. So then. So before that, I guess the mocks must have been easier. That must have pushed up my score. But the point is, all I did was have fun, and I wrote those mocks. But what happened is subconsciously, मैं वो pattern को बार-बार attempt कर रही थी. Almost the whole first year of my preparation, मैंने additional material solve नहीं किया था. I would just give mocks regularly, so I didn't even have anything else to think about. Mock में भी I would think about previous mock में ऐसे question पूछा था, oh, these answers are never the right answer, so these are always like, this is a common type of trap that the examiner is using. वो ही मैं बार कर रही थी in the first year of my preparation, and my scores were great. Now 2021 happened, and in 2021 I remember जो मैंने घर पे paper दिया था, I got a 94. Okay. And the way that my previous mocks were going, I thought that I was really intelligent and I was really going to get great marks. So I was quite disappointed. I got a reality check after 94. And then my mock scores actually started declining. Like they would be in the hundreds. They never crossed 110, but they would be in the hundreds. Then they went to the 90s and then to the 80s. And I was really upset because I did not know what was going on. Nothing about my preparation had changed. And they were declining. And time was running out, right? I had to get my GK on track. I had to do everything else and my scores are declining. So I was quite upset about it. But I remember that I talked to you about this once. I think it was about one particular mock. But you said something that really struck with me. You said कि हाँ पहले जो mock में ये score आया था तो वो पहले आया था. Is that really relevant for this mock and this GK section and this score? And that it's not.
That is not, for sure, that is not.
Your past precedent जो होता है तुमने पहले अच्छा किया हो या बुरा किया हो has no bearing on how you will perform in this mock, this section and this question.
For sure.
It's an emotional precedent for you कि अगर पहले तुमने अच्छा किया होगा तो you're still the same person who can perform that way. That is the way to interpret those things. But beyond that, if you start reading into those results too much and making conclusions about your ability to solve, then they will ultimately end up being the wrong conclusions.
For sure.
So once I realized that, I think I relaxed a lot. And my scores again, like from 80s to 90s, 90s to the 100s.
I remember that was the time of when you joined Mega GK classes. I think you have joined Mega GK classes in the August.
Yeah, I did.
In the August of 2021. And in the August of 2021, you joined Mega GK classes, and this incident happened. I believe in the last week of August itself, or in the first week of September.
Yeah, in September.
Because then I remember your mock score were increasing, and in December you were again on 100 plus marks.
Yeah, no, in December, that was the time when I first talked to you in September, they were still okay. They were in the 90s. Then for a brief time, they were in the hundreds. Then was the time they started declining. And then in early Jan or so, they started lifting up like anything, like in the hundreds, 110s. One time I got 127.5. That was my best score. But I believe that was a bit of an easy mock. But yeah. So that was my journey. It was kind of a roller coaster. But I feel like in retrospect, it was very much tied to how I was feeling about those mocks. So because a lot of people will, you see these stereotypical images in the media of toppers who are like really nervous before their exams.
Always.
Right. But in real life, your anxiety, your pre-exam mindset will directly impact your ability to think logically. And
Exactly.
which is, think logically is like the motto of CLAT. Like that's exactly what they're testing. कि तुम logically think कर सकते हो या नहीं. So it was really important for me to stop, viewing mocks as like indicators of my intellectual ability, and start viewing it as, okay, let's see what's out there. Let's see what kind of a thing CLAT can put before me.
For sure, for sure. And I
So
remember.
once I started doing that, they started increasing. And finally, I told you about only focusing on boards. That had its downsides as well. Most of April, my scores were terrible. Last few weeks of May, like the 2 weeks before the CLAT prep, they started picking up, because the most of April, first 2 weeks of May, I was entirely in the dark as to whether I was going to make it or not.
Yeah, we know. I remember that in this complete preparation, that is not more than what we can say, 5 to 10 times that we have word on the phone. है ना? And in the month of April and in the month of May beginning, we had a discussion when you said, "Sir, I have just finished board." You send me the screenshot of your result. That, sir, I topped the boards, and now it is the time to get back into the game. It is the time to
Yeah.
get into the game. And this happens not only to you. I remember this happened to many of my students who made it to their dream NLU in the very first attempt, and they basically got very good marks in their boards also. So what happened to them? They, after just finishing their boards, they are a bit in the panic that how to get that speed again. And then comes a very important advice from the mentor side, that you cannot get that speed again just like that. You have to start gradually. Within 2 or 3 days, you will get the speed. And if you judge yourself on the very first day, it will be disruptive.
I completely agree.
You have to get that speed within 2 or 3 days. So we remember that I remember that we had word key, start with your favorite subject. Whatever you want to do. Start revising the things. Don't give the mock in the very first day. After 2 or 3 days, then give the mock. So
And 2 or 3 is also quite a generic time limit. Like I started with my favorite subject, as you said, English. And in English, I was pretty much on track in like 2 or 3 days. And every mock I gave after that, I hardly made 1 or 2 mistakes. I was amazing. Every other subject took me a month and a half. And though there was this entire period where CLAT was literally, I could see it on my calendar, and I was having nothing but my guts to go on, because mock scores weren't reflecting that I was going to make it. All I had to do was trust myself.
just
So it does take a lot of time, but ट्रस्ट तुम छोड़ दोगे तो वो छोटा सा चांस भी चला जाता है.
Exactly.
तो छोड़ तो नहीं सकते.
हमारे पास ऑप्शन भी नहीं है.
हाँ, exactly. और क्या करोगे?
और क्या करेंगे? ट्रस्ट छोड़ ही नहीं सकते. My next question is that there are weak part and a strong part of every student in their preparation, and what differentiate a student who secured well or good marks to the student who haven't secured well and good marks is whether they are willing to accept that they have some weak portion, and they are basically apt on preparing those weak portion into a strong portion. So what made you realize first your weak and strong portion, and how did you get over your weak portion to make it a strong portion?
Yeah, okay. So I feel like there's two parts to that question. In one part, you talked about accepting your weaknesses and strengths. I feel like, I mean, if I could be blunt with you, it's unrealistic for aspirants to waste time thinking that I should be perfect. And I'm not saying this in a prescriptive manner कि ऐसे करो वैसे करो. That's the job for motivational speakers. मैं भी करती थी. I would do the same thing. I would expect that ये question ये तो मेरा सही आना चाहिए, but I don't know the answer, and then I would go into that loop. But at some point or the other, you have to wake up and realize that all of the AIR ones in so many years, none of them has gotten full marks. तो तुम AIR 1 भी आ गए तो तुम्हें नहीं मिलने वाले फुल मार्क्स. सो स्टॉप ऑब्सेसिंग ओवर ये क्वेश्चन मेरा सही जाता है या गलत जाता है. जस्ट स्टार्ट लुकिंग फॉर, ओके, दिस इज अ क्वेश्चन दैट आई फाउंड डिफिकल्ट. व्हाट डिड आई फाइंड डिफिकल्ट? किधर मेरा रुक गया? वेयर इन द जर्नी फ्रॉम क्वेश्चन टू ऑप्शंस टू आंसर डिड आई स्टॉप, एंड हाउ डू आई अवॉइड दैट? एट सम पॉइंट यू हैव टू गेट रियल विथ योरसेल्फ एंड रियलाइज कि कोई भी परफेक्ट नहीं होता. अगर तुम्हारा अच्छा रैंक नहीं आता, और किसी का AIR 1 आता है, that does not mean that they are better than you.
और
And the other way around also, if you get AIR 1 does not mean you're the smartest kid in the whole batch of people.
और
But so that's about the acceptance part. Then about my strengths and weaknesses, I knew very early on what they were. I loved English like anything. In every English class I'd taken, I would enjoy myself. So English obviously was my strength. I thought legal and CR were also my strengths because ultimately they were reading heavy sections, and I tend to do well in those. For GK, I made a really big mistake there, which I would like to, as a word of caution. बहुत सारे मॉक्स में, like in every mock I took, like from the beginning to the end, जीके में मेरा कभी परसेंटाइल इतना अच्छा नहीं आता था. Even when I would get like good marks, my highest percentile in GK was like 89 or something. And there would always be people in every mock where you can see the sectional toppers, right? The sectional topper would have full 35 on 35. And I would always hold myself to that standard because मेरी मेमोरी पहले से काफी अच्छी है. So I would hold myself to that standard, and I never considered GK to be a strength. I considered it, I didn't consider it a weakness per se. I thought it was an okay subject जिसमें मैं okay perform करती हूँ. And it was a time intensive subject, so I gave it the time that it demanded from me. But मैंने उसको strength consider ही नहीं किया. And in the paper, I actually got great marks in GK. Like there are people who've ranked way higher than me and have scored less in GK than me, which did not, it did not affect my score because I gave it the time that it demanded, but it affected my mindset during the paper. When I saw the GK section, I was shocked. I did not know what to do. And even in the legal section, I was in the whole like tension mindset so much so that my hands started shaking like anything. And for 5 minutes, I had to put the pen down and be like, okay, we are going to calm down, because even if I'm filling the right OMR bubble, I'm going to fill outside of the bubble. I cannot control my hands. So it had this sort of a debilitating effect in my paper. जो मेरे legal में easily marks बढ़ सकते थे, वो मैंने silly mistakes कर दिए. And why? The root cause of it is that I did not have confidence in GK, the confidence that I should have had with the level of preparation that I was putting into it. So I guess the lesson from the whole story is that you should trust your instincts. मेरा GK अच्छा हुआ था, ये मुझे instinctively पता था
कि अच्छा होने वाला है.
So data will help you to a certain extent, right? And you should hold the hand of data as far as possible. But it's also important कि तुम खुद के instincts को trust करो.
You are the one who scored 23 marks in the streak, na?
Yeah, I'm the one who scored 23.
We have a pattern of taking tests in our classes, and those classes are streak classes. That I ask question to a single student, and I ask question to that student till when he or she gives the wrong answer. So we see that how much answer a student can give right. And this girl in front of you, she scored 23 correct answer in a streak. That is the highest in a batch of 2022, and still she has a underconfidence or a skeptical attitude towards GK. So to everyone out there, this is a very important word of caution, that if you are good at something, please be very rational that you are good at something. Because the mock score in which you see the 35 marks are sometimes not the real marks. Sometimes. है ना, you see, because 35 marks मेरे को भी नहीं आएंगे यार, 35 marks AIR 1 IAS को भी नहीं आएंगे, किसी को आ नहीं सकते. और अगर मुझको 35 marks हर बार जीके में आ गए तो मैं पढ़ाऊंगा क्यों? मैं केबीसी में जाऊंगा ना. Every year I will go and win 15 crore. Exactly. I will be super rich person. Are you getting it? So this is not possible, and that is why we always say in class that 26 to 28 marks we can go, 30 marks we can go. We will try for 33. But if the paper is too tough, 26 is a very good score. So 26 is a very good score. Add it to your mom and dad, the people in your friends, family, and the other people who help you to stay on the track and gain consistently in this exam.
So as you said, my mom and dad are like, you know how movies में evil parents के stereotypes होते हैं. So if somebody flipped the stereotype and made a supportive parent stereotype, I think that would be close to what my mom and dad are. I feel like the number one thing that they did for me, which I did not already mention, of course, is that जब मेरा mock में score खराब आ रहे थे, consistently खराब आ रहे थे scores, So they would say, "Oh, what are you doing? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? You've not solved this material yet, you know?" And I would say things like, "Oh, I don't think that is very helpful for me," or that material is kind of outdated, or it's too hard, itna hard nahi aata. Whatever the reason, and as a parent, they were obviously concerned, right? Like especially in April, जहाँ पे अभी CLAT आ गई है और मेरे scores नहीं है up to the mark. Obviously you're really concerned, and any other parent, every well-intentioned and really supportive parent in their position would have been like, यार what do you know, तेरे तो इतने number नहीं आ रहे, so safe side पे कर ही लो ना. But they never did that. They trusted me even when I was having trouble trusting myself in the preparation, which was, I mean, it's monumental what they did.
So,
Yeah.
my second last question of the day, what do you want to say about the last week and the last day and the D-Day in the strategic manner?
Okay. So I know a lot of my questions have, like up to this point, I've answered them with the perspective of what to do, right? Do this, do that. My last week, last day, D-Day are all from the perspective of what not to do. Okay. So I'm an excellent example for how you should not spend the last week of your preparation. I had decided, I had taken it upon myself to club a bunch of GK lists. Like you would have a list, other coachings would have a list. I would club them. I would color code the topics. And I had decided to go through all of the topics based on my color coded priorities, of course. And the point is that on the 17th, right, the exam was on the 19th. And on the 17th, I felt a little sick. It was nothing major. I got over it in a day or two. So I knew at the time also it was not that major. But the point is, it made me slow down significantly. And then I got a significant delay in my very expansive list, जो करने की इतनी जरूरत नहीं थी. Okay. And then on the 18th, and then on the morning of the 19th, I was just obsessed with filling that delay. I had taken it upon myself क्योंकि मैंने बहुत रॉक सॉलिड प्लान बनाया था कि मैं ये करूंगी, फिर मैं ये करूंगी, फिर वो थोड़ा सा डिले हो गया, and then my entire thing collapsed because in my version that I had imagined in my head, I will do XYZ, I will go to the exam will go well. अभी X को निकाल दिया. So then I came to the erroneous conclusion that abhi to exam acha nahi jayega unless I bring it back. So I was obsessed with filling that delay in my list, and I did it, and ultimately on the last day, on 18th, I still had about 20 topics left, and it was 11, and my mom was like, "Okay, I don't care about your delay. You have to go to sleep. It's important for you to get some sleep." And I agreed with that in principle. So I went to go to sleep. And in my mind, I remember I kept thinking about the World Social Protection Report, which isn't even that important. Maybe for that particular month it was, but in the large scheme of things, it was not that important. I kept thinking about it. And I was asleep for around 4 hours. The entire rest of the time I was thinking about this. Okay, World Social Protection Report, for example. Okay, the ILO, who publishes that report, founded in 1919, only tripartite UN agency, oldest specialized agency. All of this thing I was doing in my head, and I was at some point, I understood that I had to stop doing this and get some sleep. But at that point, I was so nervous that I was unable to stop. Like I kept trying to be like, okay, no, we're going to sleep. And immediately my mind would just go back to whatever it was doing.
I can understand.
It was quite, it sounds like one of those genius montages that they will show in movies, but it is literally the worst thing you could do to yourself on the last day. You cannot do this to yourself on the last day. It was a anxious spiral, and I was slowly spiraling into it. I got 4 hours of sleep. I woke up 2 times as if something terrible was about to happen. Like, oh my god, what's happening? And I had a terrible headache, and no reason for having that headache except for my tension. I went to the exam, and then I saw that GK section, and at the first hour of my prep, like the GK and then the legal section, and then I did one set of math, but the math set was okay. The first maybe 55 minutes of my preparation were the worst exam I have attempted, because as I told you before, my hands were shaking. I was questioning every decision I made, and it was quite horrible. Okay, and then I finished my legal. I did one set of maths, and the time that I had estimated for English and logic, which was strong sections, 5 minute kam the ya aise kuch tha. Okay, I don't exactly remember the thing, but at that point I remember that I had watched this TV show called Modern Family, in which there's a character who goes to an interview where she not only does badly, but the interviewer also berates her a little bit, and she's at a point in her life where nothing is going well for her. So she's in her car, and she's crying because she thinks she's not going anywhere, and like she keeps saying that to herself, I'm not going anywhere. And then she says, oh my god, I am not going anywhere, and then she gets out of her car and then she goes back. So I had a similar moment where I was doing that, and I was remembering, okay, I have 1 hour, I'm not going anywhere, I have 1 hour, I'm going to give this paper. So then I calmed down and I gave the English and logical sections, which were my strongest sections, I gave it in a good frame of mind, and then the remainder of the math section as well, it went well.
So I remember that you were there in the day before session of the mindset session on the 18th that I took when we repeatedly talked about 2 points, that anything can go bad, you will not go wrong. You will not go wrong. And the second thing is the example of Ford versus Ferrari that we have discussed n number of times. That no matter how much you are prepared, there are a heavy number of chances that in the very first lap of the race, your car door can be open, and you still have to go with it. You still have to go with it. So when I had the interview of Janvi, she told me, and also Bharti over phone, she told me that that line, that anything can go wrong, you must not go wrong. Anything can go wrong, you must not go wrong, is very important line. And I basically got this line while I was preparing for my examinations. Ki Manav, anything can go wrong, you must not go. This is the only situation. So this is a very apt example. I just want to ask one more question to it. That you have mentioned that what wrong you did in the last 1 week of GK. What according to you would be the right thing that you should do?
Okay, so last 1 week specifically pertaining to GK, क्योंकि बाकी सारे sections skill based है. अगर तुमने तब तक skill build किया है तो तुम्हारा अच्छा आएगा, नहीं तो नहीं आएगा. So there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay.
But what I did not realize that even though GK is a memory based section, it sort of works in the same way, right? एक last के एक week में तुम नहीं कर सकते कुछ. Like you can't significantly add to your knowledge.
And how do you know कि कौन सा question आने वाला है? How do you know कि कौन सा question आने वाला है?
Right. So I feel like now looking back, the list I made was quite, I mean, it was terrible. And I should have just calmed down every time, even when I was doing those topics on the list. Like I would not get one fact and I would panic and I would do the whole topic again so that I could get that one fact. जो मे बी बोर्ड्स के लिए वर्क करेगा, बट जीके काफी वास्ट है, उसमें नहीं वर्क करेगा. सो जीके में इट्स जस्ट लास्ट 1 वीक में ऑल यू कैन डू इज रीड. रिटेंशन का प्रैक्टिस पहले करना पड़ता है, लास्ट 1 वीक में नहीं होगा. Earlier when you're studying GK, earlier on in your prep, your entire focus should be on retention, right? ज्यादा मैं रीड नहीं कर रहा हूँ. ओके, इन दिस मॉक एक पैसेज आया था, ये तो अक्टूबर से था, बट येस्टरडे आई डिड अक्टूबर, उसमें नहीं था मेरे. इट्स ओके, अभी तक एग्जाम को बहुत देर है, सो यू कैन एड इट टू योर नोट्स, राइट? सो रीडिंग में ज्यादा टाइम मत करो, जो तुमने रीड किया है वो रिवाइज करो, रिटेंशन पे फोकस करो. And then in the last 1 week, flip that strategy on the head, just focus on reading. क्योंकि retention का practice हो चुका है.
For sure. And how much basically do you think that the 15 days revision notes we have did, the 15 days revision class, what had helped you in your GK preparation?
I feel like the 15-day revision class at the time that it happened was a huge help, क्योंकि वो जैन में हुआ था और उसके पहले का सब कुछ रिवाइज हो गया.
Exactly. Not only the Jan 15 days, the 15 days of this June also.
Yeah, and then the June 15 days, it was like I used it as a secondary revision. Like during the day, I had a certain amount of time जिसमें मैं जिसमें मैं अपना GK रिवाइज करती थी. And after that, I would come to class and you would revise some GK that I had not done. And then maybe on the next day, I would do the GK that you had told you had revised on the day previous, and I used it as a secondary source of revision. So I was revising one topic 2 times, so that was really helpful. Especially at the time where आठ से 10 बजे तो होता था रात को, and when it is 8 and you have already studied for like 8 to 10 hours, maybe like let's say 6 hours, even if you've studied for 6 hours, by the time it is 8 p.m. you are tired. All you want to do is go and sleep. At least in my case. So क्लास में आती थी तो थोड़ा सा खुद का जो मोटिवेशन नहीं होता था उसका ओनस चला जाता था कि ओके ये कर रहे तो अभी वो कर रहे, आई हैव टू पे अटेंशन, मुझे कुछ करना नहीं है, आई जस्ट हैव टू पे अटेंशन,
Sit and listen.
सो व्हेन आई डिड नॉट हैव दैट मोटिवेशन, वो आपसे मिल जाता था. दैट वाज अ ग्रेट हेल्प टू मी बिकॉज अदरवाइज आई वुड हैव नॉट डन एनीथिंग फ्रॉम 8 to 10 टू बी परफेक्टली ऑनेस्ट.
और मैंने वो टाइम बहुत सोच के रखा हुआ है. इन द इंटरव्यू टू दिस नोट, any point or any pointers you want to give for CLAT 2023 students?
Yeah, so now CLAT 2023 I think is in December. I don't know the exact date. तो काफी I feel like थोड़ा सा टेंशन शुरू होगा कि last few months maybe it's still a significant portion of time. First of all, you have no idea how long it can be. It's a big portion of time. मेरा last 2 weeks में improve हो गया था. I know people जिनका 1 week में improve हो गया है. I know people who took lots of time. Point being कि time का stress मत लो. Time is anyway going to keep moving regardless of whether or not you get stressed about it. So उसके बारे में सोचना ही बंद करो. मैंने end में वही किया था. Like in the April month जब मेरा खराब चल रहा था, there was nothing I could do by thinking, oh अभी April month है, अभी June में exam आ जाएगा. It's not going to better or worsen your prep. It's just a fact, right? Time is a fact. तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते कोई किसी उसके बारे में. So that's number one. Number two, something I've already said before, that don't like put yourself in the center of your preparation. उसके आसपास बाकी सब होता है. Mocks उसके आसपास होते हैं. Ultimately, it's you in the center, right?
Let me add, that is not only for the preparation. I always used to tell them in the class that you are not a planet of a solar system, you are sun in yourself. And if people are around you, they will be, or anything around you, they will be in a certain distance because you are sun. And if no one is around you, you are still a star. You are still a star. So either you have a solar system or not, you must have your own fire. And this is very much required for each and every aspect of life. Not only mocks, not only relationships, not only scores, not only anything. It is basically the core part of life, that be the sun or the star of your life, not a moon or a planet of your life. Don't depend on someone for light each and every time. Have your own life. Very good observation.
And I think lastly I would say that instinctively तुम्हें जो पता होता है वो एक बात है, right? Trust your instincts, all of that. People will tell you कि trust your instincts, trust data, and then those things will run in conflict and you would not understand कि क्या करना है. In such situations, I'm a big fan of the phrase reality check. Constantly interact with other aspirants. Other aspirants are your number one source of the reality check because उन पे भी वही बीत रही है जो तुम पे बीत रही है.
Exactly.
So mentors and all, I would still say the best mentor is other aspirants. जो तुम्हारे लेवल पे हो, तुम्हारे लेवल के ऊपर हो, that is preferable, but ultimately सब पे same बीतता है. So talk to other aspirants about your problems if you can. Telegram पे बात कर सकते हो, या if you can have a Zoom call with somebody. If you can, just talk to other aspirants about your thing and get a reality check from them. Okay, I think I'm doing well in this, but ये तो बहुत ही फालतू mistake था. So I have to keep this in mind that I am making these mistakes despite doing overall well in this section. और यहाँ पे मेरा percentile ऊपर है, but the mock was quite easy. So I have to keep in mind that yeah, it's a good score, it's a great score. I'm glad I performed well, but mock easy था. तो next time अगर मेरा percentile गंदा गया, that does not mean my ability has suddenly dropped or whatever it is. So use the resources around you. तुम्हारे parents who will know you emotionally, so they will give you the best emotional reality checks. If not parents, friends होते हैं, सबके friends होते हैं, तो you can talk to them for reality checks. Your mentors, your teachers, from your coaching center, or even otherwise, if you're preparing for boards, if you have somebody, try to talk to as many people as possible who can give you different perspectives. Because खुद के perspective को trust करना है वो तो पता है, but the more perspectives you have, the more you can refine your understanding of how well you are performing. जो मेरा, as I said before, GK में I was completely off the mark. The way I perceived myself to be performing in GK. Obviously, I was quite lucky that the balance went in my favor, and I ended up performing better than I thought. But ulta bhi ho sakta hai. So you have to talk to as many people, get as many perspectives as possible, ताकि तुम्हारा जो perspective है, which is at the center, it gets really firmed up.
For sure, for sure. What a genuine, a rational, and a thoughtful advice. What a genuine, rational, and thoughtful advice. I'll put a very important disclaimer in the beginning of this interview, that if you are starting this interview, please do end this interview. This interview must not be left in the middle, because पूरा देखोगे तभी समझ में आएगा. So this is a very important interview. This is a very genuine and a very genius interview. Thank you so much, Anushka, for coming. Thank you so much. I am just very much grateful to the destiny and to everything that I get a chance to teach a student like you, and I'm very much grateful for that. Let's meet in the future. Let's meet in the future, and down the line, 10 years, I have a very strong belief that all of you girls and all of you boys are going to do wonders. Are going to do wonders for the society. Are going to do wonders for the society.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Take care.
Yes, sir.